Okay, let's go ahead and do math quiz. I'm going to go ahead and start NetBeans. And this particular app brings to our attention the problem of integer division. It's a little math quiz. Addition. So I'll call it Math Q. Put it on the desktop. And get rid of the package statement. Go ahead and get right to the code. So I'm not going to do the comments at the top. I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of the area up there, and I will align the curly brackets. So if you will, please go ahead and put in the general comments at the top. And let's get right to this application. All right, so I know this is going to be a GUI. I know I'm going to format some stuff, so let's go ahead and put those two import statements in at the top. So we'll have import, javax, swing, and of course this will be the J option pane. And the import java.text, and we're going to go ahead and bring in the decimal format. Okay. Now I know you all like big text, so let's go ahead and give that a whack. We're going to go ahead and go to Tools, Options, Fonts, and we'll go ahead and change this to your favorite. I think you'll like, I don't know, 24 or 20. Let's see what 20 does. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and get right to the code. I'm not going to be doing the comments. You can do that if you'd like. So I know I'm going to need a couple of counters. So let's do the first one. Let's make them ints. Count equation correct. Or let's do the count equation number. We'll initialize it to 0. We'll do another one, which would be count equations correct. And we'll initialize that to 0 as well. Then we'll go ahead and prompt the user, put it in a string. We'll use the J option pane for this. We use the J option pane class so that we can use the show input dialog. And the arguments will be null, comma. I'm going to press enter on here so I can go down the line because it's going to be kind of long. And we'll say how many equations would you like to solve? Make sure you put in the question mark there. Go outside of the string and let's put something in the header. And I'm going to go down a line on here. This is going to show up in the title bar. All right. And then I'm going to go ahead and put in a little icon. And we'll use information message. That ought to do it. So we'll then get that response and convert it to an int. I know I should give this a long variable name, but let's just put n. And we'll parse the response and put it in n. Okay, so the question says, how many equations would you like to solve? I think n is a good variable name. So then the next thing we want to do is I'm gonna need a decimal formatter. So let's go ahead and just create it now. We'll use it later. I'm just going to call it df. And the pattern I'm going to use is all optional. And we'll come back and use that later. So now we're going to go ahead and do a little loop. The loop is where all the work gets done, or a lot of the work gets done. So let's go ahead and build this loop. So it's 4. And let's just go ahead and use I. I stands for index. We'll increment. We'll go ahead and initialize that to 0. And we'll go all the way up to n. And then we'll increment it with the I++. That's what that means there. So then we're going to put in our opening and closing. See how I just put in the opening, now we're going to go ahead and build this loop. And it's really going to be quite a lot of information in here. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and generate 2 random numbers. And I'm just going to call it R1 and R2. And we're going to need to convert them to ints. We'll use the math class. And we'll generate the random numbers, give them a ceiling of, we'll give them a ceiling of 10 on here. I'll explain this to you. Let me just go ahead and type it in and then I'll explain it. It's kind of hard to talk and type at the same time. So I'm going to do 2 of these. I'm going to generate 2 random numbers that we're going to end up using to create an equation. So it's R1 and R2, and I just copied it, put it in again. Okay. So basically it goes like this. We're going to generate a random number. We're going to go ahead and multiply times 10. That'll give us a number between 0 and 10, but not including 10. And then we're going to go ahead and then add 1 to it to move it up the number line. But we don't want the decimal places on it, so we're going to cast it to an int, and that'll give us our first random number between 1 and 10. Okay. Then we're going to go ahead and use the J-option pane. We're going to use the show input dialog. And we're going to go ahead and build the equation that they need to solve on here. So we'll say response gets J-option pane, show input dialog, and inside the dialog, we're going to go ahead and say null, comma, and then we're going to go ahead and build the equation. That would be R1 and we're going to concatenate that with a plus sign. I know it looks a little weird, but we'll discuss it in just a minute. And then we're going to go ahead and concatenate that with R2. And then we're going to go ahead and concatenate that with the the equation, or the equal sign, excuse me. And that's going to be a string. She doesn't use the spaces on here, but I do. I like spaces on here. So let's go ahead and, so that's the string that I'm building. This is what's going to appear inside. It's going to be like your prompt on here. So you go outside the double quotes and we'll build the next line. Let me just go ahead and take this down a line here because it's going to be quite long on here. So I'm going to go ahead and press enter right here and continue going. Got the little red line because we're not finished yet. So we'll put in the comma and we'll build the rest of this on here. So we're going to put something in the title bar. So we're going to say equation, put in a little space. We're going to do some magic here. I'm going to go ahead and concatenate that with the count equation number. And add 1 to that. That's what's going to give us that +1 kind of business, on here. So we're going to continue on the next line on here, and we're going to go ahead and concatenate that with a string out of, and that's going to be concatenated with the and. Okay. And then we're going to put in the icon. All right. All right, and I got a little error here because I didn't spell this right. There you go. Looks a little bit better now. If you didn't want that red line, you probably could have gone to the very end. Remember, I've done this before. Go to the very end, put in the semicolon. That way you don't have to be seeing that little red line if it does disturb you. Going beyond the red line on here is something I don't recommend. So I recommend that you go ahead and take this down a line on here like that. That makes it look a little bit more presentable. So what this is saying is it's a input dialog, and it's saying the first number that's been generated plus the second number. What's the answer? Equation is going to show in the title bar, and it's going to use this counter to count through the equations as it loops out of n. And we may need to format that in just a little while on here, right? Remember how I promote running? So we could go ahead and run this if we wanted to. So how many equations do you want to solve? Make sure you spelled everything right. I'm just going to put 2. And of course, I put 16. And then 5. See how it says equation 1 out of 2? That looks kind of nice. I added that. And of course, we're not finished with it yet, but I think you want to go ahead and build and run and build and well, actually build, run, fix, until you pretty much finish this thing out. Okay, so that's my prompt on here, and I'm going to go ahead and increment the counter. So that's count equation number. This is the incrementer here. And then I'm going to go ahead and get the answer, put it in a variable. Call the variable answer. Of course, I've got to remember, as you know, that this is a, it's a string and it needs to be converted to a number. So we'll parse int that. And there we go. I've got that going into a variable now. So now inside of this loop, I've got to go ahead and perform a test. The test is if, and the condition is going to be inside the parenthesis, if the answer is equal to, remember equal, the test, that's 2 equal signs, it's a test for equality, R1 plus R2. In that particular case, I will use the curly brackets to make sure I'm using proper format on here. So in this particular case, I'm testing to see if R1 plus R2 is equal to the answer. If that's true, then I'll say correct. So in other words, I'm doing the math here, putting it in an answer, and I'm comparing it with that. So we'll say J-option pane, and then we're going to have a show message. And in the show message, we'll say correct. Little string. I don't remember if this is correct with exclamation point or not. I'm going to go ahead and put one in. I like the exclamation point, so let's go ahead and put one in. Sounds more exciting if you do it that way. And let's go ahead and increment the counter for the correct. Count equation correct. Now this, I'm going to use a different format this time. I'm going to do it with the plus plus, and got to spell this the right way. How did I spell it up here? Count equations correct. I misspelled it here, so let's go ahead and spell it right. I mean, I could misspell it again if I wanted to, but let's go ahead and make sure it's spelled right. So that increments the counter, the second counter on here. So now I'm going to go ahead and put in the else clause on here. So the else clause is going to say incorrect. Yeah, so let's go ahead and do that. And put in our opening and closing curly brackets. And then we'll go ahead and put in the J-option pane and say incorrect. Now live life dangerously is going to go ahead and get this. I could have typed it in, but let me just do a Control-C and then Control-V. And instead of correct, I will say incorrect. Okay. All right, so that's the end of our loop on here. You may want to go ahead and verify that. See how this is the loop right here. You may want to say end loop, just to make sure. And the one above it is the M and the F, okay? So while we're still inside of main, we have some more processing to do. So the next thing we need to do is go ahead and find the percentage, correct? So we'll say percent, double, we'll make it a double. And the equation that she gave us was, 100. And then we're going to say times. And this would be count equations correct divided by n. All right. That's how you find the number, the amount correct. So now we're going to go ahead and build the feedback. So we'll say string message. And we'll go ahead and say if percentage. That's, if percentage is greater than or equal to 90, then what should we? I should use the curly brackets, but there's only one line, so it's okay to go ahead and use this format that I'm using here. If you want to use the curly brackets, you can. You should. We'll say great job. And then we'll do an else if. In this particular case, we'll do a test for, in this case, we'll do a test for percent greater than or equal to 80. And in which case, we'll just get this, copy it, put it down here. This case, we'll say good job. And I didn't spell percentage right, so let's go ahead and put that in there. Yeah. We have one more to do, or a few more to do. I'm going to live life dangerously, so I'm going to come up here and copy these two lines. See how I did that? I'm using my shift and then the arrow keys here, so you can get that and do a control C, go down one line, do a control V. In this case, I'm going to go and change that 80 to a 70. Instead of good job, we'll say pretty good. Yeah. And let's go down one more. We got one more to do, so hey, why do another control V? In this case, we'll do a 60 on here. This is either going to help you or create an editing nightmare. So in this case, we're going to go ahead and say keep trying. All right, and then we'll have an else. In this case, the message will say, you need more practice. How's that for being positive? We'll just say period. All right, so we just need a little termination of the statement there. So now we're ready to go ahead and go on to the next part on here, which would be to build the output string. I'll just call it output. We could use response again, if we wanted to, but let's just use the output. Response is used a lot because it seems to be popped in a lot by this editor. So we'll say you got, and you can build this inside the message box if you want. I just like to just build a separate string and then feed it. So you got, in this case, count equations correct. I'm going to go down a line here, add the plus sign, so we can continue to concatenate out of, concatenate with, and Question's correct. Period. Now, if you don't like that red line, like I say, you can always just do things like this. See that? And then come back and continue to build. If it drives you a little nuts to see the red line on here. So let's continue to build now. We're going to go down a line with \n. That equates to, and concatenate that with percentage. Concatenate it with the little, now we could use a formatter for this, but it's just too easy to just put in the percent sign. Okay. And now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and concatenate the message that was generated above. And then we're going to say something like, you know, keep trying or whatever, you know, we generated. Okay. And then we're going to go ahead and feed this to the show message dialog. So we'll say null, comma, and we'll say math quiz. Addition. It's going to show in the title bar. And then we'll go ahead and we're missing something. We're missing, of course, the output. Let me go ahead and put that in here. And the last thing we need is the little icon. All right. So that ought to do it. Well, not really. Let's see what we've gotten ourselves into and run it and test it and stuff like that. Okay. Let's look at the code for first of all. Make sure you've got everything right on here. I'm just aligning my curly brackets, right? So here's main. I'm gonna comment that. And then of course end the class. Don't want to end up deleting that. So those are two important squigglies on here. So let's just go through the logic on here again. I've got some counters. I go ahead and say how many equations would you like to solve. That goes into response. Response is a string. Got to convert that to a number. I do my formatter. I haven't used it yet. Then I go ahead and use a loop, and inside that loop I generate two random numbers, and I go ahead and then ask the user to solve a couple of math equations, addition. So I generate the first number, put it in R1, generate another number, put it in R2, make a statement out of that, put it in a dialogue, and they respond to it, and I put it in answer. I'm also incrementing the count equation number. Then I go ahead and check it. If it's correct, I say correct. If it's incorrect, I say incorrect. I go ahead and create calculate the percent correct, and based upon the percent correct, I say great job, good job, etc. That message is then used to create an output string to the user. So I go ahead and create my output string first, and then feed it to the GOption, to the show message dialog. Now, if you wanted to, instead of passing the string variable right in here, you could just go ahead and do all this stuff right in here. Okay, let's see what we've got. Let's go ahead and run it and see what it does. Hopefully I can get a couple right. So this is math quiz addition. How many equations would you like to solve? Make sure you're looking and make sure everything is spelled right. So let's just say I want to do 3. So 6 times 4, I'm going to go ahead and say 11. Incorrect. And I'll do 1 correct. correct? Notice how it says equation 3 out of 3. And let's do 13, right? So that's correct. So now it says you got 2 out of 3 questions correct. That equates to 0. You need more practice. Yes, we fell into that integer division again. She made us do it again. She made us fall in there again. And I think I needed an extra space on there too. Didn't I need a, you know, I think I needed an extra little space here. So I forgot where it was on here. So let me run that again. But basically, let me fix the equation first of all. The problem that we're having here is that this is an integer variable and this is an integer variable. See? And when you have an integer divided by an integer in Java, the remainder's thrown away. The remainder's thrown away, so I get 0. So 0 times 100 is a 0, so I end up with percent. So you see how that so we've got to fix this. Remember in the first time we did this, we went ahead and converted one of these ints to a double by putting in a .0. The other thing that we could go ahead and do, she talked about it, is that we could go ahead and change one of these variables to a double from the very beginning and then format it as needed. So like say, for example, when we bring in the number of equations on here, this n, see how we bring it in as an int? Let me go ahead and comment this out. That's the I like to do stuff like that. So, and then underneath it, let's bring it in as a double and see what happens. We're gonna, if we bring it in as a double, it's probably gonna look weird, but we can go ahead and fix it later on here. So we're gonna go ahead and use the double class and say parse double on here. Okay, let's do that. Let's do that again. Parse double, and it brings in response. So remember, everything that comes in through, and I had the two equal signs there, so that wasn't working out. I was wondering what was going on. So everything that comes in through a dialog is a string, so now we're going to convert it to a number. So let's run it again and see what happens. So how many equations would you like to solve? Let's do 3 again, because that gives us the problem of integer division. See how it says equation 1 out of 3.0? That doesn't look good. We're going to have to fix that. So I'm going to say 15, correct. Let's do 14 this time, incorrect. And let's do that one right. So we got 1 correct. So now it says, whoa, look at that. So we're going to need to format. It's to keep trying. It's to write. Oh, okay. So we're going to need to format 2 numbers in the output, plus that right before that last sentence, I need to go ahead and put in an extra little space. So we'll go ahead and fix a little space right away so I won't forget it on here. Right here. We need a space right there. Okay. So I think we're supposed to format this number on here. And we're supposed to format this one. So we've got a decimal formatter right here that we created, and we're going to use optional, and that will get rid of that 0. So we'll say df dot format on the n and on the percent, and we'll fix it. Okay. So go ahead and say df dot format and put the n in there, and then over here we'll say df format. And I'll go ahead and put in the percent in there. Let's run it again one more time and see if it's working out on here. So we'll do for 3 again, and we'll. Oh, I got to do the title bar on the prompt. Okay, all right. So that's 12. Correct. Now let's get 1 wrong, and then we'll get one right on here. So I need to go ahead. In the prompt, I need to format that number in the title bar. So now it looks a little bit better. On here, you got 2 out of 3 correct. That equates to you know, a little bit better number, and there's a little it's not squished together with the keep trying on here. Okay, so let me go ahead and fix that prompt up here. See how it's like an iterative, so program is an iterative process. You know, you got to go ahead and go through it many times until you clean it out. So let's see here. Where was that? So that was that in the, how many equations would you put that in here? So, and then here's the show input dialog out of n. Okay, so there it is, that's their n. So I'm gonna go ahead and get that. And then say df.format and put the little n in there. All right, so that ought to do them all. I'm gonna go ahead and press enter right there. It makes it look nicer. And hopefully you understand the logic to this. So let's go ahead and run it more time. It should be clean. See how many times I run this to make sure it's clean. You got to make sure your work is clean. So we're going to do 3 again. So let's see how it says equation 1 out of 3. Now it looks good. Okay, so we'll do 18 on that one. Correct. Let's get wrong. And let's get another one right here. All right, so you got 2 out of 3. Keep trying. Maybe I should get, you may want to test this. Make sure all, where people sometimes go wrong is when you're doing these, you know, when you're doing this LCF ladder, if you put some of these relational operators going in the wrong direction, then you're not going to catch everything. So you're going to probably want to, do this to see great job, good job, pretty good, keep trying, you need more practice. Okay. To make sure that it's working out. So let's get them all right. See, make sure I get the great job. You can help me out on this one, right? So that should be 10, I hope. Okay, and then that should be 9, and then that should be 17. So you got 3 out of 3. I got 100. That equates to 100% correct. So go through each one of these to make sure that the logic is right. I mean, hopefully I did it right, but you never know unless you actually go through each one of these. You know, if you want, just keep on trying on here. Let's try 3 again. Let me get them all wrong. Oh, I got 1 right. I was going to try and get them all wrong. So now it says you need more practice. Okay. So that's it's working out. So I think we've got success on here. So this is your math quiz. You know, one here. It utilizes many concepts here. It uses the swing package to create a GUI application. It generates a couple of random numbers, and it prompts the user, and it checks to see if the answers are correct, and if they're correct, feedback is given to the user. So hopefully you found that entertaining and instructive. And thank you very much. Professor Benavides out.